My name is Carolyn, and I was 29 when my life shattered. I woke up in a sterile hospital room, skin burning, lungs screaming with each breath. Dad sat beside me, his face strewn with tears. Your mom, he choked out. Catherine didn't make it. You're the only one who survived. The world collapsed around me. After he left to speak with doctors, a police officer slipped in. She glanced nervously at the door before leaning close. Ma'am, she whispered, are you ready to hear the truth about him? As I share what happened next, let me know where you're watching from and subscribe if you want to hear more stories like mine. Before the fire destroyed everything, I had what looked like a normal life from the outside. I was a marketing executive at a growing firm in Chicago, but 6 months ago, I moved back to my hometown of Cedar Springs to help my parents. Mom had fallen and broken her hip, and though she was recovering well, Dad insisted she needed more care than he could provide alone. I was happy to help, especially since my remote work arrangement made the transition fairly seamless. My relationship with my mom, Catherine, had always been close. She was my confidant, my cheerleader, the person who taught me to stand my ground in a world that often tries to push women aside. We shared the same laugh, the same love of mystery novels, and the same tendency to tear up during sappy commercials. She was 62, vibrant despite her recent injury, with plans to finally see the world once she fully recovered. My relationship with Dad was more complicated. Richard Sullivan was respected in our community as a successful insurance broker, a deacon at church, and a family man who seemed devoted to his wife of 40 years. But behind closed doors, there was another side to him. He had always been controlling, though I never put that specific word to it until my boyfriend James pointed it out. Have you noticed how your dad needs to approve everything your mom does? James asked during his first visit to my parents' house. We had been dating for 4 months, and his outside perspective was illuminating. The way he checks her phone, questions where she goes, even monitors what she eats. It's not normal, Carolyn. I brushed it off at first. That's just how they've always been, I said. But once James planted the seed, I couldn't stop seeing the patterns. Dad deciding what Mom would order at restaurants. Dad answering questions directed at her. Dad checking the mileage on her car to make sure she wasn't overdoing it. Mom had access to household money, but Dad reviewed every purchase. He had justified this arrangement years ago by pointing to a time when Mom had overspent on Christmas gifts. She needs guidance with finances, he would say, with a paternal smile that made my skin crawl in retrospect. 3 weeks before the fire, Mom and I had lunch alone at a small cafe while Dad was at work. Her physical therapy was going well, and she seemed more energized than I had seen her in years. I want to go to Spain, she said suddenly, stirring her tea. When I'm fully recovered, I've always wanted to see the Alhambra. That sounds wonderful, I replied, genuinely excited for her. Have you talked to Dad about it? Her smile faltered. He says it's too expensive, too dangerous, too everything, she sighed. But I'm going to go anyway. I've been saving a little money here and there. Just don't tell your father. That was the first time I realized Mom had secrets from Dad. Over the next few weeks, she revealed more. She had been squirreling away small amounts of cash for years. She had applied for her own credit card. She had reconnected with old friends through a secret email account. I love your father, she insisted when I questioned her about these hidden acts of independence. But sometimes I feel like I can't breathe, like I disappeared inside his life and lost myself. I started noticing more concerning behaviors from Dad. He would call Mom repeatedly when she was out shopping, demanding to know exactly when she would return. He installed a home security system that notified his phone whenever doors or windows opened. He joked about putting a tracking device on her car. The night before the fire, I came home late from dinner with James. Dad was in the garage, which wasn't unusual. He often tinkered with his tools or car in the evenings. What struck me as odd was that he quickly shut the door when he saw me pull into the driveway. Inside the house, I found Mom at the kitchen table, her eyes red and puffy. When I asked what was wrong, she forced a smile and said, "Just thinking about life, how quickly it goes by." Later that night, I heard them arguing. Their voices carried through the heating vent to my childhood bedroom, which I had temporarily reclaimed. "You can't keep living like this, Richard," Mom said, her voice uncharacteristically firm. "I won't do it anymore." "You'll do what I say as long as you're my wife," Dad responded, his tone eerily calm. "This conversation is over." I heard a door slam, then silence. I considered going to check on Mom, but decided to wait until morning. It wasn't the first time they'd had a fight, and I didn't want to escalate things by interfering. That decision will haunt me for the rest of my life. As I settled into bed that night, I texted James. I think Mom might finally be standing up to Dad, but something feels off. I'm worried. His response came quickly. Trust your instincts. Maybe suggest she stay with you at your apartment for a while. I planned to do exactly that in the morning, but morning never came in the way I expected. Instead, I woke to a nightmare that would forever divide my life into before and after. The digital clock on my nightstand read 2:17 a.m. when I first smelled the smoke. It crept into my consciousness, slowly intertwining with my dreams, until some primal part of my brain recognized the danger and jolted me awake. For one disorienting moment, I thought I was back in my Chicago apartment, that perhaps a neighbor had burned dinner. Then reality crashed in as I saw wisps of dark smoke curling under my bedroom door. I leapt from bed, my heart hammering against my ribs. The doorknob was warm to the touch, not scorching, but enough to make me pause. I pressed my palm against the wood of the door itself. No intense heat. Following what I remembered from elementary school fire safety, I opened the door just a crack. The hallway was hazy with smoke, but I could still see. The real horror was downstairs, where orange flames were beginning to lick up the staircase. The crackling sound was deafening, punctuated by the occasional pop and snap of wood giving way. "Mom! Dad!" I screamed, my voice already raspy from the smoke I'd inhaled. Their bedroom was at the opposite end of the hallway from mine. I had to get to them. I dropped to my hands and knees, remembering that smoke rises. The air was clearer down low, but the heat was intensifying by the second. I crawled toward my parents' bedroom, calling out again and again. No response came. The smoke was getting thicker, making my eyes water and my lungs burn. Halfway down the hall, the heat became unbearable. Flames had reached the top of the stairs and were spreading rapidly across the carpet toward me. The wallpaper was bubbling and peeling, family photos crashing to the floor as their frames warped. I couldn't go any further. My parents' bedroom door remained closed, 20 feet away, but might as well have been 20 mem. "Catherine! Richard!" I screamed, using their names in case the formal address might cut through whatever was keeping them from responding. Still nothing. With the path forward blocked by advancing flames, I retreated to my room. Smoke was pouring in now, making it hard to see or breathe. I slammed the door shut and stuffed a blanket against the crack underneath. My window was my only escape route. I fumbled with the lock, my fingers clumsy with panic. When it finally gave way, I pushed the window open and gulped in the fresh night air. My room was on the second floor, about 15 feet above the ground. Under normal circumstances, I would never have considered jumping, but these were not normal circumstances. I leaned out the window and screamed for help. Lights were coming on in neighboring houses. Someone shouted that they had called 911. I could hear sirens in the distance, but they sounded impossibly far away. The decision was made for me when a loud crash from the hallway signaled that something structural had given way. Smoke poured in under my door with renewed vigor. It was jump or die. I climbed onto the windowsill, said a quick prayer, and pushed off. The fall was both endless and instantaneous. I hit the ground hard, feeling something snap in my right ankle. Pain shot up my leg, but I kept moving, dragging myself across the lawn to get away from the burning house. The last thing I remember clearly is looking back at the inferno that had been my childhood home. Flames were shooting through the roof now, illuminating the night sky with an unholy glow. I thought I saw a figure moving inside, a shadow passing by an upstairs window. Then my neighbors Terry and Lisa were beside me, their voices distant and distorted as they tried to keep me conscious. "My parents," I gasped. "They're still inside." Lisa's face crumpled with pity. Terry looked toward the house, now completely engulfed, and shook his head slightly. The ambulance arrived, paramedics swarming around me. As they lifted me onto a stretcher, I caught fragments of their conversation. "Possible accelerant. Fire marshal says it's suspicious. Spread too quickly for an accident." Then darkness claimed me, pulling me under into a place where pain and fear couldn't follow. I drifted in and out of consciousness in the ambulance, the ceiling of the emergency room, a doctor's concerned face, the cold press of a stethoscope against my chest, the pinch of an IV being inserted. Time lost all meaning. I floated in a haze of pain medication and smoke-induced delirium. images flickering behind my closed eyelids. Mom laughing in the kitchen. Dad in the garage, his back to me. The smell of gasoline. Wait, was that a memory or a dream? I tried to speak, to ask about my parents, but my throat felt like I had swallowed broken glass. Every breath was agony. Eventually, I surrendered to the darkness again, letting it pull me back into oblivion, where I didn't have to face whatever reality awaited me when I fully woke. 3 days after the fire, I finally regained full consciousness. The rhythmic beeping of monitors was the first thing I registered, followed by the antiseptic smell that could only belong to a hospital. My body felt heavy, weighted down by pain and grief and medication. When I managed to open my eyes, Dad was sitting beside my bed. He looked terrible. His normally meticulously combed hair was disheveled, his clothes wrinkled as if he'd been sleeping in them. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and several days' worth of stubble covered his jaw. But he was alive. Relief washed over me quickly, followed by hope. "Mom," I croaked, my voice barely audible. Dad's face crumpled. He took my hand, careful of the IV line. "She didn't make it, Carolyn. The fire. It spread so fast. She was trapped in our bedroom." His voice broke. I tried to get to her, but the flames were everywhere. I barely made it out through the bathroom window. The world seemed to stop. A rushing sound filled my ears, drowning out whatever else Dad was saying. Mom was gone. My beautiful, kind mother, who had finally been planning to live for herself, was gone. "How?" I managed to ask when the roaring in my head subsided slightly. Dad wiped his eyes. "The fire marshal thinks it started in the kitchen. Maybe an electrical short. It spread up the stairs so quickly." He shuddered. By the time I woke up, the hallway was already engulfed. I called out to Catherine, but she must have been overcome by smoke already. I tried to reach her. "Carolyn, I swear I did, but I couldn't get through the flames." A doctor came in, then a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. She introduced herself as Dr. Patel and explained my injuries: second-degree burns on my arms and back, smoke inhalation damage to my lungs, a broken ankle from the fall, and various cuts and bruises. "You're very lucky," she said. "Another few minutes in that smoke and you might not have made it." Lucky wasn't how I felt. With every breath, I thought of Mom. Had she suffered? Had she called out for help? Had she thought we abandoned her? The questions tortured me, but I couldn't voice them without breaking down completely. In the days that followed, Dad rarely left my side. He brought me gifts: flowers, books, a new pajama set to replace the hospital gown. He spoke with the doctors and nurses, managed my pain medication schedule, and fielded calls from concerned friends and family. He was attentive in a way I had never seen before, almost hovering. "The insurance company is being very cooperative," he told me on the 4th day. "We'll have a settlement soon. I'm looking at rentals for us while we decide what to do next." Us? The word felt wrong somehow. Mom had always been the buffer between Dad and me, smoothing over our differences, helping us understand each other. The thought of living alone with him made me uneasy, though I couldn't articulate why. "What about Mom's funeral?" I asked. A shadow passed over Dad's face. "Already taken care of. Given the circumstances, I thought a private cremation was best. We can have a memorial service later when you're stronger." This struck me as odd. Mom had always talked about wanting to be buried in the family plot where her parents and grandparents rested. She had specifically told me once that she didn't want to be cremated, but grief was making it hard to think clearly, and I didn't have the energy to question Dad's decisions. When friends tried to visit, Dad often intercepted them, claiming I needed rest. "The doctor says too much stimulation isn't good for her recovery," he would tell them. Though Dr. Patel had actually encouraged visitors to help keep my spirits up. My closest friend Natalie managed to slip in one afternoon when Dad went to the cafeteria. "Everyone's so worried about you," she said, squeezing my hand. "And I'm so sorry about your mom. The whole town is talking about the fire." "What are they saying?" I asked. Natalie looked uncomfortable. "Just that it was a terrible tragedy. That your mom was a wonderful person." She hesitated. "Some people think it's strange how quickly it spread. Terry from next door told someone he smelled gasoline." Before she could elaborate, Dad returned. His face darkened when he saw Natalie. "Visiting hours are over," he said, though it was only 3 o'clock in the afternoon. "I was just leaving," Natalie replied, giving my hand one last squeeze. "Call me when you're up to it," she whispered before Dad ushered her out. I asked Dad for my phone later that day, wanting to connect with friends for support. It was destroyed in the fire, he said quickly. I'll get you a new one when you're discharged. For now, you should focus on healing. That night, I overheard Dad speaking with Dr. Patel outside my room. Their voices were low, but I caught fragments. Still very fragile emotionally, might need stronger medication for anxiety. Best to limit visitors and information that might upset her. After that conversation, my pain medication seemed stronger. I spent most of the next day drifting in and out of sleep, thoughts fuzzy and disconnected. When I mentioned to a nurse that I felt unusually groggy, she checked my chart and frowned. Your father requested an increase in your sedation, she said. He was concerned about your anxiety levels. That didn't sound right. I hadn't complained about anxiety. In fact, I needed clarity to process everything that had happened. But before I could question it further, Dad was there again, talking about our future plans. I'm thinking we might move to Arizona, he said casually. Make a completely fresh start. There's nothing left for us here now. But my job, I protested weakly. My friends, my life. You can find a new job, Dad said dismissively. Make new friends. After what we've been through, we need to stick together. You're all I have left, Carolyn. The way he said it sent a chill through me despite the warmth of the hospital room. There was something possessive in his tone, something that reminded me of how he used to talk to Mom. As I drifted back to sleep, fragments of memories surfaced, a raised voice behind closed doors, Mom's wistful expression when talking about freedom she didn't have, the smell of gasoline the night before the fire. But surely that was just my imagination twisted by grief and medication, wasn't it? By the 5th day in the hospital, a strange uneasiness had taken root in me. It wasn't just grief, though that was a constant companion. Something felt wrong about Dad's version of events, about his behavior, about everything surrounding Mom's death. That morning, I woke to the sound of raised voices in the hallway. Dad's distinctive baritone was unmistakable, though he was clearly trying to keep his volume down. I'm her father. I'm the only family she has left. I decide who sees her. And when he was saying, anger simmering beneath the controlled surface of his voice, Mr. Sullivan, this is an ongoing investigation, a woman responded firmly. We need to speak with your daughter. Haven't we been through enough? Dad's voice cracked with what sounded like genuine emotion. She just lost her mother. She's traumatized, heavily medicated. Whatever questions you have can wait until she's discharged. I pressed the call button for the nurse, wincing as the movement pulled at the bandages on my arm. A young nurse named Marcus appeared moments later. Who is my dad talking to? I asked. Marcus glanced towards the door, his expression carefully neutral. A detective from the police department. She's been trying to speak with you since you were admitted. Why hasn't anyone told me this? Your father, Marcus hesitated. He's been very protective of your recovery process. He asked us not to mention the police investigation to avoid causing you additional stress. Police investigation. The words echoed in my head. Of course, there would be an investigation after a fatal fire, but the way Marcus said it, with that careful emphasis, made it sound like more than standard procedure. What exactly are they investigating? I asked. Marcus looked uncomfortable. I really shouldn't. It's not my place to... He adjusted my IV line unnecessarily. The circumstances of the fire were unusual. That's all I know. Before I could press him further, Dad walked in, his face immediately shifting from anger to paternal concern. How's my girl this morning? He asked, leaning down to kiss my forehead. I forced myself not to recoil. Who were you talking to? Just a hospital administrator, he said smoothly. Paperwork, nothing for you to worry about? The lie came so easily to him that I momentarily doubted what Marcus had told me. Dad had always been convincing. That was what made him successful in the insurance business. But I knew what I had heard. Later that morning, when Dad stepped out to get coffee, one of my mother's oldest friends, Barbara, slipped into my room. She looked around nervously before approaching my bed. I only have a minute, she said. Your father has been keeping everyone away, but I had to see you, to tell you how sorry I am about Catherine. Thank you, I whispered, tears filling my eyes at the mention of Mom. Barbara took my hand. Carolyn, there are things you should know. Things Catherine told me before. She swallowed hard. She was afraid. Carolyn, she had made plans to leave. My breath caught, though part of me wasn't surprised. I remembered our conversation about Spain, about the secret savings. She was going to file for divorce. She had an appointment with a lawyer the day after. Barbara trailed off, then squeezed my hand. She was finally ready to break free. The door opened and Dad stood there, coffee cup in hand, his expression thunderous. "Barbara, what a surprise." Barbara straightened, something like defiance flashing across her face. "Richard, I was just leaving." "Yes, you were," Dad agreed coldly. "And I'd appreciate if you didn't upset my daughter with your visits again." Barbara left, and Dad sat beside me, his manner suddenly solicitous. "You shouldn't have visitors who upset you. Your recovery is the priority now." "She didn't upset me," I said. "She was Mom's friend." "Barbara never approved of me," Dad said with a dismissive wave. "She's always tried to come between Catherine and me, even filled your mother's head with silly ideas about independence." He practically spat the last word. That night, alone in my room, I tried to piece together what I knew. Mom had been planning to leave Dad. The fire happened just before she was going to take action. Dad had been acting strangely, controlling the narrative, keeping people away from me. And then there were the fragments of memory that kept surfacing through the haze of medication and trauma. Dad in the garage the night before the fire, the smell of gasoline, the way he had quickly shut the door when he saw me arrive home. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to go back to that night, to push past the mental barriers my mind had erected to protect me from the horror. I remembered waking to the smell of smoke, but there had been something else before that, a sound. What was it? Footsteps. Light, careful footsteps in the hallway outside my room. I had assumed it was Mom or Dad going to the bathroom, but now, trying to place it in the timeline, I realized those footsteps had come just before I smelled the smoke. Another memory surfaced from earlier that evening. I had gone to the garage to get a soda from the extra refrigerator we kept there. Dad was standing by his workbench, his back to me. When he heard me, he turned quickly, blocking my view of whatever he had been doing, but not before I glimpsed a red gas can on the bench. "Just filling up the lawnmower," he had said with an unconvincing smile. It had seemed odd to me even then. Why would he be filling the lawnmower at 10 o'clock at night? But I hadn't questioned it. My heart began to race as the implications of these memories hit me. No, I told myself, no, it couldn't be. Dad wouldn't. Dad couldn't. The next morning, a young nurse I hadn't seen before came to check my vitals. As she recorded my blood pressure, she leaned in close. "The detective left her card at the nurse's station for you," she whispered. "I can get it if you want." I nodded, slightly afraid to speak in case my voice betrayed my newfound suspicions. The nurse slipped a business card under my pillow before leaving. "Detective Sarah Jenkins, Cedar Springs Police Department." A phone number was written on the back in pen. "Call anytime. We need to talk." Dad arrived an hour later with breakfast from the hospital cafeteria. He seemed distracted, checking his phone frequently. "Good news," he said finally. "The insurance adjuster approved our claim. We'll have the funds by next week." "That was fast," I commented, trying to keep my voice neutral. "I've been in the business for 30 years. I know how to expedite these things." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I've also found us an apartment in Phoenix. We can move as soon as you're discharged." "Phoenix, that's more than 1,000 miles away." "Exactly. Far from all these painful memories." Dad reached for my hand. "It'll be just the two of us now, Carolyn, taking care of each other." The possessive note was there again, sending alarm bells ringing through my mind. I made a show of yawning. "I'm still pretty tired," I said, "and the medication makes me groggy. Do you mind if I rest for a while?" Dad seemed relieved, perhaps mistaking my desire to be alone for acquiescence to his plans. "Of course, sweetheart. I need to meet with the real estate agent anyway. I'll be back this afternoon." As soon as he was gone, I retrieved Detective Jenkins's card from under my pillow. My hand shook as I reached for the hospital phone beside my bed. "Detective Jenkins speaking." The voice on the other end of the line was brisk but not unkind. "This is Carolyn Sullivan," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, though I was alone in my room. "You left your card for me about the fire." There was a pause, then, "Miss Sullivan, thank you for calling. I've been trying to speak with you since you were admitted. My father hasn't been allowing visitors." "Yes, we've noticed." Something in her tone made my skin prickle. "How are you feeling?" "Physically or emotionally?" "Both." I laughed hollowly. "My body feels like it's been through a meat grinder and I just lost my mother. How do you think I'm feeling?" "I'm sorry for your loss," she said, and it sounded genuine. "But I need to ask you something important. Is there any chance you could speak with me in person without your father present?" The direct question confirmed my growing suspicions that something was very wrong. "He's gone for a few hours meeting with a real estate agent," I said. "I'll be there in 15 minutes. True to her word, Detective Sarah Jenkins arrived exactly 15 minutes later. She was younger than I expected, maybe in her mid-30s, with short brown hair and alert eyes that missed nothing. She closed the door to my room and pulled a chair close to my bed. "I should warn you," she said without preamble. "What I'm about to tell you will be difficult to hear." My mouth went dry. "It's about the fire." "Yes, and your parents." She took out a small notebook, but didn't open it. "First, I want to confirm what you've been told. What did your father say happened that night?" I recounted Dad's version. The fire starting in the kitchen, likely from an electrical problem, Mom trapped in the bedroom, Dad barely escaping through the bathroom window. Detective Jenkins listened without interrupting, her expression giving nothing away. When I finished, she nodded once. "Thank you. Now I need to tell you what our investigation has uncovered." She took a deep breath. The fire was deliberately set. The room seemed to tilt around me. "You're saying someone wanted us dead?" "Not all of you." Her eyes held mine steadily. "Miss Sullivan, we have reason to believe your father started the fire." The words hung in the air between us, impossible, yet horribly plausible. "No," I said automatically, though even as I denied it, puzzle pieces were falling into place in my mind. "We found a receipt for a 5-gallon gas container and gasoline purchased the day before the fire," Detective Jenkins continued. "Your father's credit card was used. A neighbor reported smelling gasoline before seeing smoke. The fire pattern is consistent with an intentional blocking of escape routes from the master bedroom." "But why?" My voice cracked on the word. "We've been investigating your father for several weeks," she said, her tone gentler now. "Your mother contacted the Domestic Violence Resource Center last month. She was planning to leave him and had consulted a divorce attorney. This aligned with what Barbara had told me, with what Mom herself had hinted at. Still, I struggled to accept the logical conclusion. Also," Detective Jenkins continued, "your father recently increased the life insurance policies on your mother to $2 million. The policy specifically covered accidental death, including house fires." The room was spinning now. I gripped the edges of my bed to steady myself. "But he told me she died in the fire, that her body was—" "Carolyn," Detective Jenkins leaned forward, her voice low and urgent. "This is the most important thing I need to tell you. We never found your mother's body in the house." For a moment, I couldn't process what she was saying. "What do you mean? If she wasn't in the fire, then where is she?" "We don't know yet, but we have evidence that she was alive after the fire. A gas station security camera 20 minutes from your house captured footage of your father's car at 3:40 in the morning of the fire. There appears to be someone in the passenger seat, though the image is unclear." My mind raced to keep up with these revelations. "Are you saying he took her somewhere?" "It's a possibility we're investigating." She opened her notebook now, turning to a specific page. "We've also discovered some troubling history. There were 3 domestic disturbance calls to your parents' address over the past year. Each time your mother declined to press charges." "I didn't know," I whispered, though part of me wasn't surprised. How many times had I sensed tension but looked away? How many times had I noticed Mom's occasional bruises but accepted her explanations of clumsiness? "There's more," Detective Jenkins said. "Your father has been systematically isolating your mother for years. According to friends we've interviewed, controlling her finances, monitoring her movements, cutting her off from support systems. Classic abuser tactics." Each word was like a physical blow, yet they aligned perfectly with the patterns I had observed but failed to name. The way Dad always answered for Mom in social situations. The way her circle of friends had gradually shrunk over the years. The jokes about her spending habits that weren't really jokes. "We believe your father planned to kill both you and your mother that night," Detective Jenkins continued. "The fire was set to block both bedroom doors. It's only because you woke up and escaped through the window that you survived." "And Mom?" My voice was barely audible. "Our working theory is that she either escaped the fire as well, or was never in the house to begin with, and your father took her elsewhere." She met my eyes directly. "We need your help to find her, Carolyn, and to build a case against your father." "He's been talking about moving us to Arizona," I said numbly, "getting us far away from here." Detective Jenkins nodded grimly. "We've had him under surveillance. He's made inquiries about property in remote areas. We're concerned he's planning to disappear with you and perhaps finish what he started with your mother." The implications sent ice through my veins. My own father planning to kill me. It seemed unthinkable, yet the evidence was mounting, and my own memories were aligning with the detective's account. "What do you need me to do?" I asked finally. "For now, nothing that would put you at risk. Continue to let him think you're unaware of our suspicions. We'll have an officer stationed outside your room at all times, and we're working to get an arrest warrant based on the evidence we've gathered. And my mother, if she's alive? We have officers searching every property connected to your father. If she's out there, we'll find her. Detective Jenkins stood, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. You're safe now. We won't let him hurt you again. After she left, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind reeling. The father I thought I knew was a carefully constructed facade. Behind it lurked a monster, capable of burning down our home with his family inside. All for insurance money and to prevent Mom from leaving him. And somewhere out there, Mom might still be alive, frightened, injured, held against her will. The thought was both agonizing and hopeful. If there was even a chance of finding her, I had to help. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to remember every detail of the days leading up to the fire, every odd comment Dad had made, every unusual behavior, anything that might help find Mom before it was too late. Detective Jenkins's revelations left me in a state of shock, but also with a newfound determination. If Mom was alive, every minute counted. When Dad returned that afternoon, I had to pretend nothing had changed, to act as if I still believed his lies while my entire world had been turned upside down. The real estate agent found us a nice place, he said, settling into the chair beside my bed. 2-bedroom condo, gated community, very secure. The word secure took on a sinister meaning now. Was he planning to keep me prisoner? Just as he might be doing with Mom? Sounds nice, I managed to say. When can I see pictures? I'll bring them tomorrow. He checked his watch. I need to meet with the insurance agent again. Will you be okay alone for a while? I'll probably just sleep, I said, feigning drowsiness. These meds make me so tired. Dad seemed pleased by this, patting my hand before leaving. As soon as he was gone, Detective Jenkins returned, this time with another officer. We're placing Officer Rodriguez outside your door, she explained. He'll remain here until we can make an arrest. Your father won't know he's with the police. He'll be posing as hospital security. Have you found anything? I asked anxiously. Any sign of my mother? Not yet, but we have some promising leads. She pulled out a tablet and showed me a map. These are properties connected to your father, either directly owned, rented, or linked to shell companies we've traced back to him. There were 5 locations marked on the map, scattered across 3 counties. One was particularly remote, a cabin in the mountains, about 60 miles north of town. We've searched 3 of these already, Detective Jenkins said. Teams are on their way to the other 2 now, including the cabin. I want to help, I insisted. There must be something I can do from here. There is. She handed me a small recording device. We need evidence of your father's intentions, his plans to move you to Arizona, any comments about your mother, anything that might indicate his role in the fire. The idea of secretly recording Dad made my stomach turn, but I nodded. I'll do it. That evening, when Dad returned, I wore the recording device concealed under my hospital gown. I steered the conversation toward our future plans, our finances, anything that might get him to reveal something incriminating. The doctor says I might be discharged next week, I said. But I was thinking, shouldn't we wait for the fire investigation to be completed before we leave town? Won't they need to ask us questions? Dad's expression darkened momentarily before he forced a smile. That's all just formality. I've already given my statement. There's no reason to put ourselves through more trauma by hanging around here. I'm just worried about leaving loose ends, I pressed. And what about Mom's things? Her jewelry, her papers? Was anything salvaged from the fire? Nothing of value, he said too quickly. It's all gone, Carolyn. We need to accept that and move forward. It just seems strange that the insurance settled so quickly. Don't they usually investigate more thoroughly when someone dies? Dad's knuckles whitened as he gripped the arms of his chair. I told you I know how to expedite these things, and I'd appreciate if you didn't question my handling of the situation. This has been difficult enough without you adding complications. There was an edge to his voice I had heard before, but never directed at me. It was the tone he used with Mom when she stepped out of line. A chill ran down my spine. I'm sorry, I said, lowering my eyes submissively. I'm just trying to process everything. His posture relaxed slightly. I know, sweetheart. That's why we need a fresh start. Just the 2 of us. I'll take care of everything, just like I always took care of you and your mother. The way he included Mom in the present tense sent a jolt through me. Was it just a slip of the tongue or something more? Over the next 2 days, I continued recording our conversations while Detective Jenkins kept me updated on the search. Teams had searched 4 of the 5 properties with no sign of Mom. The cabin remained their best lead, but a storm had made the mountain roads impassable, delaying their search. On the third day after Detective Jenkins's initial visit, Dad arrived at the hospital looking agitated. He checked his phone constantly, his leg bouncing with nervous energy. "Is everything okay?" I asked. "Fine," he snapped, then immediately softened his tone. "Just some issues with the Arizona property. Nothing for you to worry about." He left earlier than usual, claiming he needed to make some calls. As soon as he was gone, Detective Jenkins rushed in. "We've got him," she said, her eyes bright with triumph. "We found evidence at his office. Hidden files detailing the insurance policy, documents about your mother's plans to divorce him, and a hand-drawn map to the cabin." "You searched his office with a warrant?" "Yes, we also found this." She showed me a photograph of a small key. It was hidden in his desk drawer, labeled storage. We believe it might be for a storage unit or outbuilding at the cabin property. "Have you been able to reach the cabin yet?" "Teams are heading there now that the roads are passable. We're also preparing to arrest your father. Officer Rodriguez will remain with you for protection, but I want you to be prepared. This might get messy." I nodded, a strange calm settling over me. After days of pretending, of carrying the weight of these terrible suspicions, there was relief in knowing it would soon be over. Detective Jenkins had just left when my phone rang. Dad had finally replaced it the day before, though he had installed some kind of family tracking app that I was now certain was meant to monitor me. "Carolyn," Dad's voice was strangely subdued. "I need you to listen carefully. I'm coming to get you out of the hospital. There's been a misunderstanding with the police. They're making wild accusations about me, about the fire. We need to leave town immediately." My blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" "Don't ask questions. Just be ready to leave in 20 minutes. I'm bringing clothes for you." "Dad, I can't just leave. I'm still recovering. The doctors say—" "Forget what the doctors say," he shouted, then immediately lowered his voice. "I'm your father. I know what's best for you. Be ready." The line went dead. I immediately pressed the call button for the nurse who summoned Officer Rodriguez. I explained the situation, and he immediately got on his radio to alert Detective Jenkins. "He knows you're on to him," I said, panic rising in my throat. "What if he tries to run? What if he does something to Mom, if he hasn't already?" "We have officers at every exit of the hospital," Officer Rodriguez assured me. "He won't get to you, and teams are at the cabin now. If your mother is there, they'll find her." 30 minutes passed with no sign of Dad, then an hour. Hospital security conducted a sweep, but found no trace of him. I was both relieved and terrified. What if he had escaped? What if he had gone to hurt Mom? As evening fell, Detective Jenkins returned, her expression grave. "We've issued an APB for your father. His car was spotted heading north toward the cabin, but he has a significant head start." "Oh God," I whispered, "if he reaches her first." "We have officers closing in from multiple directions. The roads to the cabin are limited. He won't be able to escape." The next few hours were the longest of my life. I sat in my hospital bed, staring at the phone, jumping at every sound outside my door. Officer Rodriguez remained steadfast, assuring me repeatedly that I was safe, that they would find my father. Just after midnight, the phone rang. Detective Jenkins. "We got him," she said, her voice tight with controlled emotion. "He was at the cabin. Carolyn." She paused, and my heart stopped. "We found your mother. She's alive." The room spun around me, alive. Is she okay?" "She's been through a lot. Dehydration, some injuries consistent with assault, but she's conscious and talking. The paramedics are with her now." Tears streamed down my face. "Can I talk to her?" "Not yet. They're airlifting her to County General, but she asked about you. She was worried he had hurt you too." I couldn't stop crying, relief and horror mingling into a storm of emotion. What happened? Why was she there? "From what we can piece together, your father forced her from the house before starting the fire. He had the cabin prepared as a place to hold her. It appears he planned to collect the insurance money, then disappear with both of you once you were discharged." "But why not just kill her? Why keep her alive?" The question was horrible, but I needed to understand. "Control," Detective Jenkins said simply. "Your father's primary motivation has always been control. Death would have been final, but keeping her captive dependent on him, that was power." 2 hours later, I was being wheeled into County General, where Mom had been admitted. Despite protests from my doctors, I had insisted on being transferred to be near her. Officer Rodriguez accompanied me, still assigned as my protection until they were certain all danger had passed. They wheeled me into Mom's room, and the sight of her broke my heart. She looked thin and pale, with bruises on her face and arms. An IV drip fed fluids into her veins, but when she saw me, Her eyes lit up with a spark of the mother I remembered. "Carolyn," she whispered, reaching out a trembling hand. I took it, holding on as if I would never let go again. "Mom, I thought you were dead. He told me you were dead." "I know, sweetheart, I know." Tears slid down her cheeks. "I was so afraid for you. When I saw the news about the fire and they said there were survivors, I prayed it was you." Gradually, Mom told me what had happened. Dad had come to her the night of the fire, telling her he wanted to talk about their problems. He suggested they go for a drive. Once in the car, he revealed a gun and forced her to the cabin where he had prepared a small room with a bed, bathroom, and barred windows. "He told me he was going home to get you, that we would all live there until things settled down," she explained. "When he came back alone, he was agitated, saying there had been a fire, that you were in the hospital." I didn't know what to believe. He kept me locked in that room, only coming up once a day with food and water. "Did he tell you his plans?" I asked. She nodded weakly. "Once the insurance paid out, we were going to disappear. New identities, new state. He said he would keep me safe from my own bad decisions." She closed her eyes briefly. "When I heard sirens today, I thought I was imagining things. Then the police broke down the door and—" She couldn't continue, overcome by emotion. I squeezed her hand, my own tears flowing freely. "It's over now," I promised her. "He can't hurt us anymore." 1 year after the fire, Mom and I stood in the driveway of our new home, watching the moving truck pull away. It was a modest 2-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood 30 minutes from Cedar Springs, far enough to start fresh, but not so far that we couldn't visit the friends who had supported us through the darkest year of our lives. "What do you think?" I asked, slipping my arm through hers. "Is it home yet?" Mom smiled, the expression coming more naturally now than it had in the early months after her rescue. "It's getting there." Physical recovery had come faster than emotional healing. Mom's injuries from Dad's abuse had healed within weeks. Bruised ribs, a sprained wrist, cuts and bruises. The damage to her spirit had been far more profound. In the months following Dad's arrest, we had both been diagnosed with PTSD. Nightmares, panic attacks, and hypervigilance became our constant companions. Every car backfire sent Mom into a state of terror. Every time my phone rang with an unknown number, my heart raced with fear that somehow Dad had reached us. The trial had been excruciating. Sitting in the courtroom, watching the man I had called Dad for 29 years deny everything despite the mountain of evidence against him. The prosecutors had built an airtight case. The accelerant purchase, the life insurance policy, the premeditated nature of the fire, the kidnapping and imprisonment of Mom, the assault charges. I had taken the stand, describing the night of the fire, the lies Dad told me in the hospital, the plans to isolate me in Arizona. Mom testified about years of escalating abuse that she had hidden from everyone, including me. "I was so ashamed," she confessed to me one night, after a particularly difficult day in court. "I thought I could handle it, fix it somehow. I never wanted you to know how weak I was." "You weren't weak, Mom," I insisted. "You were surviving, and in the end, you were planning to leave. That takes incredible strength." The jury had deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts: attempted murder, arson, kidnapping, assault, insurance fraud. The judge sentenced Dad to 80 years in prison without possibility of parole. At 63, it was effectively a life sentence. After the trial, we had both joined a support group for survivors of domestic violence. Sitting in a circle with women whose stories echoed our own, I began to recognize patterns I had been blind to before. "Abusers don't start with violence," our group facilitator explained. "They start with control. Financial control, isolation, emotional manipulation. By the time physical abuse begins, the victim is already trapped in a web of dependency and fear." I thought of all the signs I had missed or misinterpreted. Dad checking the mileage on Mom's car wasn't concern. It was surveillance. His jokes about her spending weren't teasing. They were justification for financial control. His insistence on answering for her wasn't protective. It was silencing. "I should have seen it," I told my therapist during one of our weekly sessions. "I should have recognized what was happening." "Abusers are masters of deception," she reminded me. "They present one face to the world and another behind closed doors. You saw what he wanted you to see." Slowly, painfully, Mom and I rebuilt our lives. The insurance money from the house eventually came through after extensive investigation confirmed we had no part in the arson. We used it to buy our new home and to establish a foundation supporting domestic violence survivors. Mom, who had spent decades having her autonomy stripped away bit by bit, found her voice as an advocate. She began speaking at community events, sharing her story to help others recognize the warning signs she had missed or ignored. If I can help one person escape before it's too late, then some good will have come from this nightmare, she told me. I used my marketing background to help promote the foundation, designing awareness campaigns that highlighted the subtle forms of control that often precede physical violence. We created materials for schools, doctors' offices, community centers, anywhere people might recognize themselves or someone they loved in the patterns we described. On the anniversary of the fire, Mom did something that would have been unthinkable under Dad's control. She boarded a plane alone, bound for Spain and the Alhambra she had dreamed of visiting. "Are you sure you'll be okay by yourself?" I asked as I drove her to the airport. She smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "I won't be by myself. I'll be with me, and that's someone I'm still getting to know. But I think I like her." I watched her walk through security, her posture straighter, her steps more confident than I could ever remember seeing. My phone buzzed with a text from James, who had stood by me throughout the nightmare of the past year. "Still on for dinner tonight?" he asked. "Absolutely," I replied. We had taken things slowly, both of us, aware of my need to heal, to relearn what healthy relationships look like. But his patience and genuine respect for my boundaries had been a masterclass in what love should be. Back at home, I sat on our porch swing, reflecting on how far we had come and how far we still had to go. The nightmares hadn't stopped completely. There were still days when grief and anger overwhelmed me, but there were also moments of joy, of peace, of the simple pleasure of making choices for ourselves. Dad's actions had nearly destroyed us, but in surviving, we had discovered strengths we never knew we possessed. Mom was finally living the life she had been denied for decades. I was building a career around helping others recognize and escape abuse. From the ashes of our old life, something new and genuine had emerged. Not perfect, not unmarked by trauma, but authentic and ours in a way our lives under Dad's control had never been. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across our new yard, I thought about the question Detective Jenkins had asked me in the hospital a year ago. "Are you ready to hear the truth?" The truth had been devastating, but it had also been liberating. In facing it, we had found our way to freedom. If you've ever felt controlled in a relationship or know someone who might be, please reach out for help. The signs can be subtle, but trust your instincts. No one deserves to live in fear. And if my story resonated with you in any way, please like, subscribe, and share. It might help someone recognize their own situation before it's too late. Have you ever noticed concerning behavior in a relationship that you later realized was a warning sign? Leave a comment below. Your insight might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, true love empowers. It never controls.